All right. Happy New Year, all. Welcome to 2022. Hope you're feeling okay after the festivities and have recovered. And and are psyched for a better 2022. I mean, 2020 and 2021. Oh my gosh. And now here we are. Hopefully, this is the beginning of something great. And of course, this video is the beginning of something great. Um, okay, so hey, well, thanks for tuning in to all things Division Three soccer with Simple Coach and Jackie, who is right there, right here, sleeping away. Welcome to the new year, and yeah, let's get started. This is the first video I've done in 2022. Um, and hopefully it's a humdinger. So why don't we get rolling? Let me get set up here. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. All right, so this is the first video of the year, and what a great way to start then with goals, right? Because it's the new year. Start with goals. Well, but not those kind of goals. I actually did some work for a friend coach of mine that took a look at um, the goals that were scored against his school on, against and for. So in his case, he had, um, I think it was 31 goals for and 30 goals against. They had a record of 10, 7, and 1. And the whole premise was how they're going to score the goals they're going to score, but how do you reduce the goals against? And I think what we ended up looking at was where those goals came from, and is there a way in which you could prevent those from happening either by better defense or by better positioning, however, whatever the case may be. And I think in his case, if we could have reduced his goals against from 30 down to 24. So take 6 goals, prevent those from actually being scored. He would have gone from, his team's record would have gone from a 10, 7, and 1 to a 12, 4, and 2. So, so yeah, it was kind of an interesting analysis. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what a great thing to take a look at from perspective, very broadly speaking, at in Division Three, and it turned out to be a little bit more complicated. Again, access to video, culling through goal, like finding the goals on those videos, and so I had originally thought I could do. I was hoping to get maybe a couple hundred. That would be a great sample size, I thought, but it just turned out to be a lot longer and a lot more difficult than I anticipated, and I don't have sort of cool video hardware software to help me sort of work through this stuff and capture it. So, and it's a lot of it's on paper that I had to aggregate. So I just said, you know what, I got to 100, and I'm like, 100. Let's just do 100. That's a nice round count. The percentages will be pretty pretty simple, and as you'll see, and it's pretty straightforward. But maybe I could extrapolate and sort of take a look. So for the most part, these are this is it. This is what I've learned. So just to give you some stats on the goals themselves, and then I'll sort of clarify what how those goals, how I counted. So it's 100 goals, as I mentioned. Turns out that those 100 goals come from 53 schools that I looked at in 27 games. So 27 of the I watched 27 games that represented 53 schools, and with 100 goals. It came to about 3.7 goals a game and little under 2 goals per team if you just do straight numbers. And quite frankly, I again, it could have been another case of looking at more games. Maybe that would have changed things. Uh, but when I was doing this thing, I was like, let me find games where there's at least at least 2 goals, and so that's sort of why you see that skew of goals a game higher, because I was looking for games with a number of goals, usually trying to balance it out between teams. So I would look at a 3-2 game as an example, or a 5-3 or something along those lines. And because if I looked for 1-0 games, that would have been crazy. And I wasn't sure what games that I did avoid were really lopsided games. So I was thinking, one game I thought, oh, 8-0. It was an 8-0 game that I looked at, and um, to me that ends up skewing things, because it's almost, I always thought like, oh, your fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth goals become a little bit easier, and maybe that changes the dynamic of how those are scored. So I avoided those. Like I said, I tried to keep it competitive to make those goals honest. I don't know if that is an accurate way to describe it, but in all the women's games that I watched for this, that's sort of what I was trying to do, because I wanted it to be as pure of a goal as possible. How did I count goals? So for my coach friend, or former colleague that I was looking at, I basically counted 5 passes back, right? So from the point of the shot of the goal, I counted 5 passes back, or tried to. In some cases, there was, if the keeper got the ball, punted it, whatever. But I wanted to go as far back as possible. I was dealing with, 60 goals. It was all, the video was all compiled for me. So it ended up being a little bit easier. But in this case, I basically looked at, I'll just say, for lack of a better term, the assist, the direct assist. So from the goal to the pass that led to the goal, that's what I was looking at. So think about, and you'll see why I think it's a great opportunity. Think of a through ball from a midfielder. I counted from where that came from to the forward, and basically, if the forward dribbled or took a touch, I didn't necessarily care about that. I just cared that they got the ball and they scored from that position. So otherwise, and you'll see the I think it's the next slide, why that was the case, because otherwise this thing just looks like a mess. And I wanted to get a visual because it helped me sort of understand things. So okay, just because full credit is due, I just wanted to share. These are all the schools of the games that I watched. So, and again, I tried to go from the best of the best. So, College of New Jersey and Christopher Newport are represented, but I tried to do all sorts of schools. And again, a video was a big driver of this. So, I discovered Warren Wilson College. I never knew that there was a thing. So, I sort of looked wherever I could for these games, and again tried to do a representation of all levels of quality of soccer. So, these are the schools, and yeah. The other thing I didn't do is I didn't care who scored. Let me be clear about that. And I didn't. I have a spreadsheet that I'll show you where I tracked all this stuff. You don't know. You know the game. You know the two teams, but you don't know who scored. And unless you go back and look at the score, because I didn't want that to skew. I was just concerned about the goals. Okay, so I actually plotted this out on a on a on a field, as you can see. Now, give you some context. I sort of divided the field up into grids that and hopefully you could see the yellow lines here, here, here. And I tried to come up with these grids just so I could sort of keep track as to where the goals are coming from. Whatever was going through my mind at the time. I thought, oh, that's a good idea to do. Um, when you see different color balls, so let's start with the oranges here in the corners. Those are from corner kicks, and these yellow balls are the goals that came from the corner kick. So, these are headers or however that goal was scored, and on both sides. And you'll yeah, I spread it out over the field based on which side they scored, which provides a little bit of insight, interesting insight. But um, um, yeah, I just sort of spread it out, whatever side with the goal was scored. I'm doing the same thing for the men's side, and it's all on one side, and it's kind of a mess. But um, anyhow, so those are the orange ones on the corner and these yellow ones. The orange ones that you would see on the field, those are dead balls. So fouls. This one's a throw in down here at the bottom. Um, and then the red ones are the results of a PK. This this ball out here, for example, makes its way into the box, and then wherever that ball is, there's a foul, and instead of counting the goal, I counted where the foul was made. So, and you'll see this as I play it. I'm going to show this twice. Once now as a super fast, and then I'll slow it down at the end so you could sort of make it a little bit more sense. And so, this is probably one of the more prouder PowerPoint slides that I've created. So with that, here we go. And the other thing, as you're watching, you'll see sometimes the root of the ball is a squiggly line. That was, instead of tracking the assist, I tracked if the forward received the ball and had to do a large amount of work to get to the goal. The squiggly line means that they dribbled, right? Or they did something. And so I preferred that than to counting the pass, because the pass really didn't amount to much. So so that is where the goals came from in the women's game. The 100 goals, this is where they all came from. And at, from this is where they were scored from. The previous the previous look where it was all spread out, that's where the ball came from. So hopefully that's clear. And now I'm just going to run through some things that I thought were interesting and sort of dissect this a little bit more. So, of the just to give you a sense as to, it's not all about, these are not all pretty goals. There were 11 corners. There were 5 keeper errors. 3 of these goals were penalties, and one of them was an own goal. So that represents what, 20% of those goals were corners, errors, penalty kicks, and an own goal. I will say, and the keeper errors, I bet you it's probably 3 times greater than that, and I'll explain hopefully in a separate video that I'm going to do on goalkeepers and what I think a goalkeeper should look. And if I were a coach again, and I would be looking for certain specifics of a goalkeeper, because I think you would minimize a lot of these goals if you had a keeper who could do certain things. And I was really surprised, actually, quite frankly, I was really surprised at how there was a lot of instances where I thought the goalkeeper should have done more. I didn't necessarily count them as errors, but for example, coming off their line, or if they were slow coming off their line, I thought, man, if they were just 6 yards further and then came out, they might have had a play on the ball. I didn't count that as an error. What I counted as an error was the ball came to the hands, they were dropped, somebody smacked it in. So that's a topic for another day, but that's probably the biggest surprise. And then I would say I thought the corners would be a lot more, just because so much effort and energy seems to go into corner kicks in the game, in the Division III game, for both the women and the men. I just thought there would be more of them, but obviously not. And this plays out on the men's side as well. Okay, so let's start with the pass. Again, I broke out the segments, and this is the same map of the field. And if you just look at where the pass originated from for the goal, this part, when you're just think, 25, 30 yards outside of the box to the other 25, 30 yardish line, this center spot, 37% of goals originated from here. So, right, almost over probably 30, right, 37%. You're looking at 37 of these goals started in this middle set area. When you look at the other sections that are inside, both inside that 25-ish range, 25-30 range to the end line, you're looking at 63% of all passes that lead to a goal come from those two zones at the end. And what's interesting, again, what I mentioned is I literally plotted, if from the vantage point of the video, I plotted these goals. If the goal was scored on the left side of the field as I'm watching it, I plotted it on the left, and then I plotted it on the right. And usually these videos, for the most part, are recorded from the stands, not from the side where the benches are. And I think the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, look at that. A clear 11 more goals were scored on that left side versus the right side, which makes me wonder, it makes me think about, why would that be? Shouldn't it be sort of a relative, balance? But you score more when you're going, again, from the vantage point of the video, right to left than you do when you're going left to right. So anyhow, interesting. So that was the pass in that area. I then took a look at, same thing, pass. Hey, let me look at this way, and where do goals come from? And I thought, because that was an interesting, again, I thought the ball moved on the wings a lot more, or represented a lot more, but that doesn't necessarily pan out when it leads to a goal, which surprised me. So 58 of those passes in this middle section, and I just sort of took a look at, okay, let's say you're going just wide of the keeper box, and you're on both sides, and then you're going representing here into the middle, and then when you look at the other ends, you're looking at 42% of goals, or that pass that leads to a goal, come from this side. And the interesting thing is this includes the corners, right? So theoretically, if you remove the corners, that instead of 20 or 42%, you're looking now at 31%. So 31 goals would come from those sides, which is really surprising. Which is, to me, right? Because I would have thought, again, you get wide to get in. Everyone's teaching, and you watch the games, you get width to come back in, because that's how you spread out the defense. You open up space and what have you, and you get the ball behind the line. And I thought that number would be a lot higher, but in reality, no. The goals originate more in this central area, which is counterintuitive to me. Again, part of this exercise, I have, and I said at the very beginning, one of my first videos, I have long held beliefs about the game, about what I think is makes a good game, what makes a good goal, all those sort of things. And I'm almost doing these things to almost disprove them or to strengthen that belief. And so one of the long held beliefs that always drove me nuts is everybody's getting out wide and then, drilling the ball across and hoping for chaos. And in the women's game, that is very much not the case. Very much not the case. And again, really, really enlightening. And actually, you'll see some of my conclusions at the end. That plays out, especially when I talk about through balls, because I think, yeah. All right. So now let's look at the goal, right? So we had the pass. Those last two slides were the pass of the ball, and now these are the goals and where these goals get scored. So again, if I just sort of looked at from 18 to 18, what are the goals that get scored there? You're looking at a quarter of goals. So this to me is pass to a shot outside the box. Um, you know, again, in some cases, keeper comes out way too far. Ball gets passed and the player just chips the ball, or boots it long and finds the back of the net. So almost a quarter of all goals come from this zone, which is no surprise, right? I think by nature you think there's more goals that gets scored closer, and if you look again, goal wise, you're looking at 76% or 76 of these goals come from the inside the 18, right? The actual goal. That's not to say how the ball got there. That pass, again, that goes back to the previous few slides where 58% come through the middle and 40% on the wings. So, but the actual goals get scored 76% with inside the 18, and that should be really no surprise. The question is, how do you get there, right? And in the right spots. So, okay. So then I said, holy smokes, let's take a look at the red zone, like what I would consider the red zone in soccer. So let's just say it's the zones that you see here. So let's say it's not as wide as the 6, but almost, and all the way out to let's say 25 yards out. And I said, okay, how many of the goals that get scored come from this spot? Not the pass to that spot, but the goals. And again, you would expect it to be high. I didn't expect it to be this high. So once the ball gets in there, you stand 79 of 100 goals get scored within that zone. And again, I didn't think it would be that high. I thought it would be a little bit lower, just because I thought goals would be scored from more of this perimeter space, right? So like out here and maybe a little bit further here and here. I expected it to be significant because obviously you're central, all the justifications for it. But I was surprised that it was as high as it was. So then I said, okay, let me take a look at, knowing all this now, I got all these passes down. I've gotten sort of where the goals get scored from the most part. And then I actually looked back on how these goals were scored. And I sort of determined that there were, I'll just say, certain plays within the run of play and certain plays within a dead ball that you can greatly improve your chance of scoring a goal, and where most of these goals came from. And this is where I sort of got surprised, because again, in my own mind, I'm like, most teams just want to counter. Most teams, again, whip the ball in crazily into the middle. And I'm seeing that, it's not so much the case. That's what the thinking is. And I think a lot of the coaches drive their teams to do it, but the goals come from different places. So, run a play in the women's game. These are, again, looking at where the majority of goals get scored and how do you position or how do you play so that your team can take the most advantage of it and improve their chances of scoring. This isn't a chance thing. It's a how do I get the ball in the best position possible to score, right? Because to me, if you can get as many balls as you can into those spots in a way to you'll improve your chances of scoring just by default, right? Just by getting it into those spots. If you're going to hang on to the ball at midfield, the likelihood of you scoring is nil. But if you methodically try to get the ball into these spots, this is where you're going to score. So let's just say during the run of play, I come up with four. These are just four straight defenders. I'm not going to do anything fancy with them. You have three forwards who have pushed up, and then okay, the ball is at a midfielder's spot. Now, obviously, this is fluid, so this is going to change, but there are the best three, the most impactful three passes that the midfielder or someone could make to get in a position to score are these. Whoops. Oh, let me go back. Before we go through that, the reason why I chose this spot is because 37% of these 37% of the passes that originate to a goal are in this spot. And so it just made perfect sense to say, okay, let me take a look at let's just assume the ball comes from this area. So if the ball is in this area and it's in play, it's not being tossed around. You have control. You're moving the ball. You're trying to figure out ways to get forward and to goal. These three options to pass are the most effective. And I think there's probably close to 40 goals that are started from a ball here. And it might not necessarily be that first pass, but it would be that there would be a second pass. So the ball gets sent from the center spot here, and whoever receives the ball does something, makes another pass, and then you get a goal. So the reason why these are so impactful is the run that your outside your wingers can make to get to the ball, and usually it's behind the defender because the defender is turning to run back this through ball for obvious reasons, right? And your wingers are tucking in and receiving the ball and either taking it into that spot or dishing it out. The other one that surprised me a lot is if you have a forward who has the capacity to play with their back to the goal, to receive the ball, and then either turn, shoot, turn, take players on. This if I could only tell my forwards and my midfield to do, this would be it. This would literally be it. I would be like, don't just look for where the center back is and the outside back is, and if you see a play, put the pass through, and then I would tell my wingers to make the run, or I would just tell my center forward, you receive the ball back to goal, you're at the 18 or the 20 or whatever, do your magic. Because there was a lot of goals that, again, like I said, that's where they came from. And I was, again, surprised because I thought, if anything, I thought they were coming here and then coming this way. Again, just my impression, but it's not the case. Okay, so that was this is the run of play. And if I'm going to improve my chances to score, if I just looked at the goals that are scored from the 6 to the 18, 51% of those, of all those goals, so 51 goals come from that zone. So especially if your, defenders are up, how do I get that ball into that zone to improve my chance to score? And so that's why these runs into the middle, the forward turning, all that, that's where you're, that's sort of where I would be looking to, how do I get the ball into that play? Not how do I get it out wide, maybe if that's an opportunity, but that usually drops the defenders back too far. But on the run of play, going on the attack, that's what I would be thinking about. Okay, so now let's look at a dead ball. And this one is not real rocket science, but it highlights another issue that I discovered watching that I was really surprised by. And I'm going to try to be delicate about it. But so in the women's game, dead ball. Again, balls out in that 37% range, and this could happen on any spot really. The whole idea is that you want your defensive line out, so you want them defending at the preferably at the 12 or the 18. So I'm thinking, dead balls out in the, again, out, 40 yards away, and balls that you could float in. And again, I just chose this spot just as a representation. Let's just say you have four defenders. They're kind of defending at the 12. You have your three forwards that they're marking. Again, there's going to be a lot more bodies in there. Now, again, my druthers, and this is not rocket science, I am aiming for two spots, 6 yards out on both, and I'm looking to get over the defenders, back post or into the middle. The amount of goals that you could score in this area is high percentage, right? If you can get that ball into that spot, again, in a dead ball scenario where your defenders are up high, right? And I always, again, same thing as in the run of play. If you look at balls that are scored in between the 12, if you take a look at goals that are between the 12 and the goal line, the amount of you're looking at 51% of, or 51 goals out of 100 come from this area, and I would say it's floated in. And again, to me, I would be looking at this as a coach and being like, how do I reduce that number from a defensive standpoint? And quite frankly, I would say probably half of the time it's going to come down to the type of goalkeepers that I would be recruiting, because I was quite frankly very astonished in the instances where I thought the goalkeeper lacked the ability or the presence to sort of prevent a lot of this stuff happening. If you had a goalkeeper who was comfortable coming off their line and literally coming into these balls and to clear them out, even just punch them out or do whatever, or just get in the way, you would reduce that number quite significantly. But what I found watching these goals is that when they happened, two things generally happened. The keeper either stayed on their line or totally misjudged the ball. And which, again, I was surprised by, because I didn't think that would be as a highlight. So those are the scenarios in which I'd be playing for to get a goal. Like, at least this is where I'm trying to, especially when you have the ball and you cross midfield or you have a dead ball scenario. Okay, what else? Okay, so let's just go lessons of the goals. Or I think this is almost a summary, so I might be done. Oh yeah, I still got to show you another slide here. But okay, so lessons of the goals. Through balls, through balls, through balls. I would be playing those all day long. Part because the width, there's so much space, especially against certain teams, and I wouldn't be looking to get wide. I would be looking to get the ball between the outside defender and the center back. I would also be looking, like I mentioned, to get it to the center forward who is deep enough and can actually has the strength to turn, make something happen, and take a shot. Um, Again, I was surprised at how effective and how important the ball is when it stays centrally. I'm not surprised. I am surprised. I thought that there would be a little bit more of a defensive posture that you would see teams take where they would be tight into the middle and that you would just sort of, again, maybe it's because I watch a lot of the men's games. Um, yeah. I was surprised. Dead balls are not as effective, so including corners. I thought those percentages, just on a pure percentage basis, and sort of what I watched, individual teams are going to be individual, so this stuff might not carry, but I was just surprised at how ineffective they can be. And again, because I always see that there's so much effort is placed in 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 the game, to those to dead balls and corners. And then the last thing, and sort of I talked about it with the keepers, and I'm debating whether I should do a. I think I might just do a generic goalkeeper video, what I like, what I don't like, and um, just talk about goalkeeping in general because it's my bread and butter. So that's sort of what I'm looking at. But I would say, especially in the women's games, high balls are killers. Um, Especially high balls when you have to engage the goalkeeper. High balls to the 18 are not as effective, obviously, as they are at the 6 yard line. If you can, and I don't know why this is, I don't know if it's training, I don't know if it's what have you, but you know, high balls that get into the 6 or 8 yard line, and you have your team in the best position, you stand a really good chance of scoring. Again, partly because I'm not sure the goalkeepers that I've watched are able to engage on a play like that. Um, so yeah, and I'll talk, like I said, in a separate video. Maybe I'll talk about it because it's a common thing I've noticed, and I've noticed that a lot of more goalkeepers sit back rather than venture out to get these things. And again, when I back in my day, we high balls were it. Like we were you. There was no doubt on corners you were coming out. There was no doubt on high balls you were coming out, and it was either to get the ball, get the guy, right? So anyhow, um, okay. So this is the same thing as the first one, but it's just a little bit more slowed down for you. Hopefully, you see things that are a little bit interesting. Remember, red ones are PKs, the orange ones are dead balls, including corners, and then the yellow ones are the result of the corner, the goal from the corner. So here we go. And you don't know how long it took me to get this right. Oh my gosh, that was painful. This is one of those things where you start and you realize, oh my gosh, what did I do? Because now the bar is set. And I will say, as you see some of these things happen, there were some great goals scored. I mean, just really special goals that I again surprised. I think a lot of teams play for chaos, but I mean, these were some legit goals, like legit. Just made me happy to see. So, all right, so that was that. Um, so those are the goals. Hopefully that was a little bit insightful to you. Just want to prep you for what's coming in January. I'm doing on the men's games. I'm doing the D3, what I call the three greater than one league, D3 Select, the team that I picked of 30 players. against some colleges and how they play. I did one against Washington U. It's one of the previous videos. Well, I'll be doing one on Thursday, I think, my next one. I am doing this same presentation and analysis, but for the men. So where did the men's goals come from? That would be sometime in the next week or so. Again, I'm trying to stretch out this stuff January, February, which are the doldrums, right? And so yeah, so there'll probably be other subjects that I come up with rather quickly. Oh yeah, the one that I just thought of. I do one for jobs as well. You've seen previous videos where I take a look at openings for Division III, NAIA, and JUCO positions, head coach and assistant coach. So I'll keep doing those as they, as opportunities are presented. Just to keep track. So if you're interested in a job, you might want to check out some of those previous videos. That might be something you're interested in. So, and the last one, I'm super psyched. I have 2 interviews lined up with 2 head coaches, one on the men's side, one on the women's side, and I'm not going to divulge who they are because I want to make, it's like I don't want to say something and then it totally blows up on me. I want to actually get it recorded by the time I announce. But you should find it interesting. I know I'm psyched for it, and get a glimpse as to what champions are made of. So that's the clue. I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, let me see on my notes. Oh yeah, let me just show you real quick. If you're interested in my spreadsheet, this is the spreadsheet that drove all of that data. Here for this is the women. Yep. By all means, email me SC as in Simple Coach 149249 @AOL.com. When you dial up to connect to the internet, you can shoot me an email, and I'll gladly share this stuff. I don't make it for myself. I hope it serves someone's purpose. So, okay, let me go back. All right, so with that, I am just going to say thank you. Really do appreciate you tuning in. This ran a little long, but I thought the content was really interesting. And again, I definitely, hopefully it does the same for you as it did for me. It sort of enlightened me a little bit about, again, where goals do come from rather than my thoughts and theories about where they come from. And it really, really was enlightening. If I had the right tools, I'd probably do more and try to track more goals and all that stuff. But I just, again, this is more of a crazy obsession of mine rather than something I'm taking, way that seriously. So, all right. Hope you have a wonderful new year. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Reach out. Oh yeah, my chief marketing officer always tells me to remind you. I don't know where it is, but it's something about the subscribe button. Like it, subscribe, and then the little bell thing. I'm supposed to. Yeah, if not, I'll just keep doing these videos, and hopefully you can check them out. All right, thank you very much. Happy New Year.